notes here. I don't know if I got a chance to look at them, but I had a few things I wanted to say this morning. But first, thanks to Al Cardenas. What a terrific leader. Florida's lucky to have a man like Al Cardenas leading this effort. Al, thank you. I see David and Al's family is here too, and appreciate your work. Congratulations, by the way, to the legislators and leadership, the governor and leadership of Florida. You have in this state men and women who have decided that you're going to balance the budget, not raise taxes, turn down federal money that has heavy strings attached to it, and by doing so, by the way, you had your evaluation by the rating agencies upgraded. The outlook for Florida upgraded. At the time the nation was downgraded, Florida was upgraded. Congratulations on that courage and the good work done by the people here in Florida. Now, I thought this morning I'd talk a bit about what it's like going from the business world into government. What's similar and what's different. And I'm asked all the time, is it harder being in government than it is being in business? And I'm sure you presume it is. No. It's harder doing what you do in the private sector than it is being in government. Because what you do, if you make a mistake, if you make a serious mistake in your job, you might lose your job. Then you might end up losing your house. And if you run an enterprise that employs other people, you could lose all their jobs and the bank's money and your investors' money. It's very unforgiving in your enterprises. In government, the 4 years I spent there, I was surprised. When some people messed up, they just blamed the opposition party. That's what you're seeing in Washington today. You're seeing a president who doesn't know how to govern, who doesn't know how to lead, who doesn't know how to balance the balance sheet, but he sure knows how to campaign and blame. And we need a president that knows how to lead. Now, I found some other differences between the private sector and business world and government. One is the use of data. In the real world, in the private sector, you look at numbers and try and figure out how those numbers inform what you're going to do. In government, they have tons and tons of data. I mean, they produce mounds of information and data. They just don't look at it. I mean, I came into office, they said the best thing you can do to improve your schools is to reduce the classroom size. And I said, well, has anyone ever looked to see if the data supports that? And they looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. We had 351 different cities and towns in Massachusetts. We test our kids every year to see how they're doing. So I could find out for every one of our school districts their average classroom size and how well their average child was doing. And so I plotted the one versus the other, classroom size against student performance. And guess what? There was no relationship at all. As a matter of fact, the district that had the smallest classrooms and spent the most money per pupil, Cambridge, Massachusetts, scored in the bottom 10% of how the kids were doing. So the data is used in the private sector. By the way, what was the answer to improving schools? School choice, recruiting the best teachers in the world, making sure that we evaluated how our kids were doing, and we also put in place something called the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship Program. If you take our graduation exam and pass it, and you pass it in the top quarter of those that take the exam, you're entitled to 4 years tuition-free at our state university. And by the way, you've got to be a legal resident of the United States of America to get that. Other differences. There's competition that goes on in the real world, in the business world. A lot of people in government don't understand that. They don't understand, for instance, that right now we're in a pitched competitive battle with other nations around the world. Of course we trade with other nations. We're the most productive and inventive nation in the world. And so we must trade to have a strong economy and to have the highest incomes in the world. Trade is a good thing for us. But don't forget, we're in competition. And so when politicians work together to put trade agreements in place, they have to understand that we have to make those agreements work for us, not just for the other guy. We're competing right now in particular with China. You may have noticed. And China isn't playing by the rules. Now, a lot of people would cheat if they could get away with it. And we've been letting them get away with it for over a decade. They manipulate their currency. And you might think, well, what does that mean? What it means is this. they make their currency seem like it's worth much less than it actually is by pegging it to the dollar at a very low level. And as a result, their products sell at about 30% lower than they would if they were fairly marketed. And as a result of that, our businesses have a hard time competing. It's time for us to recognize cheaters for what they are. On my first day in office, I will issue an executive order identifying China as a currency manipulator and allowing us to apply tariffs on their goods where they're cheating and killing American jobs. There's another difference between government and the private sector. People in government don't tend to understand the power of incentives. They think, for instance, if you raise taxes a whole lot, it won't make any difference in the way people behave. They just calculate they'll keep doing what they did in the past, and then they add up the new numbers they think government's going to get. It doesn't work that way. I remember I was looking at the budget in our state. There was a line in there for homeless shelters, and I said, what's this sub-account here for hotels under homeless shelters? They said, oh, Governor, you have to understand, if someone comes to a homeless shelter and we're full, we tell them go to a hotel and we'll pick up the bill. I said, I bet the word gets around, you know? So I changed the incentive. I told them immediately put in place this new rule, which is someone comes to a homeless shelter and it's full, you tell them you'll make room. And the person who's been there the longest, 3, 4, 5 months, they get to go to the hotel. Now, before that change in incentive went in place, guess how many rooms a night we were renting in Massachusetts? 599 rooms a night on average. In the tens of millions of dollars of cost. After we changed that incentive, you know how many rooms we rent a night? 0. 0. Incentives make a difference. Now, I hope the folks that care about immigration understand that power as well. I love legal immigration. This is the land of opportunity and freedom. I want people all over the world to come to this country legally. There are 4.7 million people in line hoping to come here legally. I want the best and the brightest and the freedom lovers of the world to get in line and to ultimately become legal residents of the United States of America. But for that to happen, we have to stop illegal immigration. Because illegal immigration is an enemy of legal immigration. I was at the border in San Diego with Border Patrol agents, big fences there. They said about 100 people are able to get through, even with the fences there. And I said, what do we have to do? They said, well, number one, you got to have a fence. You can't have places that are just open. And there were places, even in San Diego, where people could virtually walk through without even to go by a fence, over a fence. Number one, you got to have a fence. You got to have enough Border Patrol agents to patrol it. Number two, they said, you have to have this country turn off the magnet. I said, what do you mean the magnet? And he said, you're drawing people in here with employers that hire folks that are here, that hire illegals. You're drawing people in to get benefits in this country they can't get in their home country. And so the things that you have to do, for instance, is you have to have an e-verify system or something like that that identifies who's here legally and then crack down on employers that hire illegals. And you heard us last night in that debate. One of the things I still can't get over is the idea that a state would decide to give a $100,000 discount to illegals to go to school in their state. It is simply wrong to create that kind of magnet. It cannot be sustained. Now, my friend Governor Perry said that if you don't agree with his position on giving that in-state tuition to illegals, that you don't have a heart. I think if you're opposed to illegal immigration, it doesn't mean that you don't have a heart. It means that you have a heart and a brain. Legal immigration, good for America. Illegal immigration, something I will stop if I'm president. Now, let me mention one more thing that's a big difference between the private sector business and government. And that is, if you spend your life in the private sector, you fundamentally understand how the economy works. What it is that motivates an individual to say, you know what, I'm going to take everything I've saved over 30 years of my life, 30 years of my career rather, I'm going to take all that I've saved and I'm going to invest it in this new franchise that I've signed up for. And my family and I are going to work in this thing and see if we can't get it to grow. That's not an easy decision to make. I'm going to go to my parents and my friends and ask for some of their money too, so we can buy this franchise and we can get the equipment and open this place up. That is a difficult decision to make. People who've been in the private sector understand how the economy works at the level of job creation, which is employers, entrepreneurs, innovators, taking a risk, making an investment. People who work in government all their life just don't understand that. The president spoke to a job summit of senior executives of American corporations, and he said to them, you all have lots of cash on your balance sheet. How come you're not using that cash to hire people? I'm glad you laughed, because that's just exactly what a number of the executives did. I'm told they looked down at their shoes. They said, that was the dumbest question I ever heard. They said, we don't hire people because we have cash. We hire people because we have customers. And the key, don't be jealous of enterprises with cash. Encourage the economy. I remember time and time again just being distressed at the fact that people inside government don't understand how the economy works. And that's why when this economy was in a slide as the president came in, he did everything wrong because he doesn't have a clue how the economy works. He put in place a stimulus that didn't stimulate the private sector. Instead, it added over 100,000 jobs to the governmental sector. He put in place the one thing that private sector entrepreneurs can't deal with: uncertainty. In healthcare, uncertainty. In financial services, uncertainty. In labor relations, uncertainty. In energy policy, uncertainty. And so businesses pulled back. Look, I can't wait to get America right again. Not by throwing little cups of stimulus gasoline at a fire. That doesn't do it. The right answer is to rebuild that fire fundamentally to make America strong, and I know how to do it because I've done it time and time again. You heard me say last night, I'll say it again, and you know this. All across America, at kitchen tables, there are people sitting with their calculators and their checkbooks wondering if they can make ends meet. All across America, sitting across kitchen tables, there are people filling out job applications, recognizing that there are at least 100 or 200 people applying for the very same job they're applying for. Right now, people are scared. They're worried. They don't need to be. This is the greatest nation in the history of the earth for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is that our economy is robust and powerful and inventive and has always been a job-creating machine. I know how to make that happen again. I put together 59 things I do, not just to put a little stimulus on the flame, but to really rebuild the economic engine that's America and to make sure that we can compete with anyone in the world. I'm convinced that given the patriotism and the hard work and the innovation of the American people, that despite our challenges, jihadists that want to kill us, Iran about to become nuclear, Israel under extraordinary stress, Russians resurgent, China becoming a great power, 14 trillion plus in debt, 62 trillion in unfunded liabilities. 62 trillion. That works out, according to USA Today, to $532,000 per household. Think of that. We've got challenges and an economy in the doldrums. Despite all those challenges, given the strength of the American people, our love of freedom, our love of this land, if we have leaders that will tell the truth and live with integrity, and who, by virtue of their life experience, know how to lead and where to lead our economy, we will remain the engine of economic vitality we've always been, the strongest nation on earth, and the hope of the earth. And I intend to be one of those leaders with your help. Thank you so much. Good to be with you this morning. Thank you.